Grok 4.3 just launched with always on reasoning and a million token context window for 1.25 per million input tokens. But here's the thing, it's not the best model on paper. So why should you care? Here is the map for this video. First, we will talk about Grok 4.3 always on reasoning. Then, we will move to Claude no toggle. After that, we will cover Grok 4.3, not Phi 1. After that, we will cover Grok 4.3's agents. After that, we will cover Grok 4.3 Z1. Finally, we will close with Grok 4.3, test it. Grok 4.3 comes with 3 features that immediately change how you use it, and one of them is a million token. So XAI dropped Grok 4.3 at the end of April 2026, and it comes with 3 things that immediately stand out. First, always on reasoning. Unlike most models where you have to toggle a thinking mode or set an effort level, Grok 4.3 just reasons all the time. You can't turn it off. That's a design choice that changes how you interact with it. Second, 1 million token context window. That's roughly 750,000 words, enough to dump an entire book series into a single prompt and ask questions across all of it. No output token limit either, so it can generate massive responses without getting cut off. And third, aggressive pricing. Through the API, it's 1.25 per million input tokens and 2.50 per million output tokens. That's cheap. Like, really cheap for a reasoning model. There's a catch though. Requests that exceed 200 thousand total tokens get billed at a higher rate. So if you're doing huge context dumps, costs can climb. But for most tasks, this is dirt cheap. Honestly, those 3 specs alone make it worth a look, even before we talk about benchmarks. Always on reasoning isn't just a spec, it changes how reliable the model is for long, complex tasks. So, what does always on reasoning actually mean for you? In most models, think Claude or GPT, you have a reasoning mode that you can turn on for hard problems. It's like a turbo button. But the model doesn't use it by default because it costs more compute and time. Grok 4.3 skips the button entirely. It's always in reasoning mode. This is interesting for 2 reasons. 1, you don't have to guess when to activate it. The model just handles it. 2, it changes the cost structure. You're always paying for reasoning tokens, but because the base price is so low, it still ends up being cheaper than many competitors' non-reasoning tiers. I've seen early testers on OpenRouter using it for agentic workflows, things like multi-step research, code debugging across files, and long-form analysis. The always-on reasoning means the model doesn't forget to think deeply halfway through a task. It's consistent. Now, does that mean it's better than a manually toggled reasoning model? Not necessarily. But it removes a variable. And for developers building autonomous agents, the consistency is gold. Look, Grok 4.3 isn't the smartest model, but that's exactly why it's interesting for a lot of real world. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. Grok 4.3 is not the best model out there. It's not beating Opus 4.7 or ChatGPT 5.5 on raw MMU or coding benchmarks. If you're chasing the absolute highest accuracy, this probably isn't your pick. But here's why it still matters. First, priced to performance. For a lot of real-world tasks, summarizing documents, extracting data, running agent loops, you don't need the smartest model. You need one that's good enough and cheap enough to run hundreds of times a day. Grok 4.3 hits that sweet spot. Second, context window. 1 million tokens means you can feed it entire or code bases, legal contracts, or research papers without chunking. Most frontier models don't give you that much context at this price point. So, for long document analysis, Grok 4.3 is actually more practical than a smarter model with a smaller window. Third, no output limit. You can ask it to generate a full report or a long piece of code, and it won't stop halfway. That's huge for automated workflows. So yeah, it's not the valedictorian, but it's the reliable workhorse that gets the job done without breaking the bank. If you're building agents or working with huge documents, Grok 4.3 might be exactly what you need. And so who's this for? If you're building autonomous agents that need to reason through multiple steps without manual intervention, Grok 4.3 is always on reasoning is a perfect fit. You don't have to worry about the model dropping out of thinking mode mid-task. If you're doing deep research or long document analysis, that million token window is a game changer. You can dump an entire book, a full legal case, or a year's worth of financial reports into the prompt and ask nuanced questions across all of it. If you're a startup or indie dev watching your API bill, the pricing is hard to beat. Even with the tiered cost for large requests, it's still cheaper than most alternatives for the context length you get. And there's a bonus. XAI also released custom voices, a voice cloning suite alongside Grok 4.3. That's more for consumer-facing apps, but it shows they're building an ecosystem, not just a single model. Personally, I think the sweet spot is anything that needs a lot of context and consistent reasoning without human babysitting. If your task is a one-shot simple question, you might not notice the difference. But for multi-turn, multi-document workflows, Grok 4.3 starts to shine. If this video helped you open Mnemonic app and turn your own notes, PDFs, links, and research into study maps, summaries, flashcards, quizzes, and exam practice, you can start with your OpenRouter API key, keep control of the models you use, and upgrade when you want the full mnemonic or workflow. Subscribe to Techie Talk AI, click the link, and try Mnemonic today. The pricing is aggressive, 1.25 per million input tokens, but there's a tiered catch you need to know. Let's talk numbers, because pricing is a big part of why this model matters. According to OpenRouter, Grok 4.3 costs 1.25 per million input tokens and 2.50 per million output tokens. For context, that's cheaper than GPT-4 Mini on some tiers, and you're getting a reasoning model with a massive context window. But remember the tiered pricing: if your total request exceeds 200 Zalozen tokens, the rate goes up. So if you're consistently using the full million token context, your costs will be higher. For typical use, though, you'll stay under that threshold and enjoy the base rate. Access is straightforward. It's available on OpenRouter right now, along with the XAI API directly. OpenRouter also shows provider performance and uptime, so you can pick the most reliable endpoint. One thing I like, there's no output token limit. You can generate massive responses without worrying about truncation. That alone makes it appealing for report generation or code writing. If you're already using OpenRouter, you can switch to Grok 4.3 in your existing workflow with minimal changes. Worth a test run. Here's exactly how to decide if Grok 4.3 belongs in your stack, and a quick test you can run today. So, where does this leave you? Grok 4.3 isn't the model that wins every benchmark, but it carves out a very specific niche: high context, reasoning heavy, cost-sensitive workflows. If that describes what you're building, it's absolutely worth testing. Here's my take. Grab a task you're currently running on another model, something with a lot of context or multiple reasoning steps, and run it through Grok 4.3 on OpenRouter. Compare the output quality, speed, and cost. I think you'll be surprised by how well it holds up for the price. Don't just take my word for it. The API is there, the pricing is public, and the context window is real. Go break it. Quick aside, if you're a student or researcher working with a ton of notes, PDFs, and recordings, I built a tool called Mnemonic that turns all that into summaries, mind maps, and quizzes in about 2 minutes. Free tier covers most exams, link in the description if you want to check it out. Now, back to Grok 4.3, I want to hear from you. What's the first thing you test with a million token context? Drop it in the comments. If you want a head-to-head comparison between Grok 4.3 and the latest OpenAI or Anthropic models, drop a comment below. And if you're already testing it, tell me what you're building. Subscribe for more no-fluff AI breakdowns like this one. Subscribe to Techie Talk AI and try Mnemonic free at Mnemonic app. Made with Mnemonic